We change the narrative on what's possible for young Africa, the youngest continent, and what it takes to accelerate the change that we want to see across our continent, and really give Africa an opportunity to decide and actively participate. Entire industries can be birthed out of innovation, out of entrepreneurship.
We must dare to invest in the future.
You can't invest in something you don't understand. For the creative economy, it's so hidden, it operates so much in the informal. The moment you speak about it, people think about musicians. There's so much more that is important. Over 1,000 jobs in about 2 years. For me, it's a game of numbers. The success stories are important because one Korean VC came in to coach and ended up investing in a startup who has now been given a visa to be able to build from Korea. So imagine the possibility of unlocking that potential of the creative economy and what it could mean for us as a country. On a global standard, the creative economy contributes trillions of dollars. But why can't my IP be my collateral? It's because you're not seen as a big enough player in the space. If your own government doesn't understand the space, how do you expect others to? No one's going to listen until we see the money or the viability of the sector. Don't leave the sector behind. It's not just cosmetic. These are crafts and entire industries that employ many people. Why must the world always create solutions for Africa? I'll come home and change lives and cricket's after. Ideally, it's a mission-driven life. That's what I hope to achieve.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast on Uganda. And you know, over here we are about finding out what fuels the wheels of Uganda's economy. We bring on leaders who tell us exactly what they're doing and how they envision that middle class economy. And today, dear Patriot, we are so in luck because we have Miss Rita Njenzi. And if I butcher your name, please tell me. No. Rita is the executive director at the Innovation Village Hub, and she's going to be telling us everything about the creative economy, everything in digital, because she's very enthusiastic. When we got in here, she was already telling me about the creatives, and hopefully, dear Patriot, you're one of those creatives who want to achieve that middle class economy together with us. So welcome to the podcast, Rita.
Thanks for having me. I feel good. I like being around good energy.
We're honored. Always honored to like yourself. Today I'm excited to soak up on your creativity.
I'm also already soaking yours. We'll share.
Okay, what do you people talk about? You are a founder of the African Creatives Alliance.
Yes.
What is top of mind at the moment, 2025?
We talk about Africa's potential, right? We change the narrative on what's possible for young Africa, the youngest continent, and what it takes to accelerate the change that we want to see across our continent, and really give Africa an opportunity to decide and actively participate. The village to architect its own future. And it's important that all we're doing is giving a voice to that, proving that it's possible, even when the stats work against you. We're solution driven, so it's really about what are the solutions, what are the catalysts that ensure that in 10 years, 5 years, the average Ugandan, the average East African is actively participating in decisions that concern their lives, their livelihood.
Brilliant. And you're very active in building the ecosystem. What is that like?
I have a real belief that entrepreneurship, innovation are catalysts to many challenges. We've seen the stats, the numbers. When we speak about active participation, that's what active participation looks like. Really, we have two economies, formal and informal. The formal economy cannot absorb all the young people entering every day, searching for opportunity, hoping for change. And if we don't reinvent what that looks like, one solution is to get those young people to become agents of change, for them to become the job creators, for them to become the decision makers, and to know that although what we have may not necessarily be able to fit into who they are, they can create entire industries. And entire industries can be birthed out of innovation, out of entrepreneurship. And that's the mission. How do we accelerate that? Yeah. How do we accelerate that innovative thinking, that innovative solution, and then scale it? So that's what the ecosystem looks like. It's the ecosystem we're building. And I think of what we're doing as catalysts, orchestrators, conveners. So whether you're convening young innovators, entrepreneurs, policy makers, the private sector, you don't have an ecosystem unless the components come together and work. And the result of that is what it means to co-create solutions for us, by us. Yeah.
And when you're actually a part of it, then it does affect you in every single aspect.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And I like that you were the national coordinator. You have to tell us more about. But you also wrote a quote on your LinkedIn: "We must dare to invest in the future."
Yes.
A lot of our guests on the podcast have talked about that quote around Uganda being one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the world, but most of them don't make it up 2 years down the line. What does this mean for you? Why should people dare to invest? Are they not investing enough?
You can't invest in something you don't understand. The moment you think about investing in anything, you think about, why should I, right? What do my returns look like? What's in it for me? That's part of the advocacy or the cry of many entrepreneurs out there. How do we get investment? But there's so many structural challenges that prevent them from getting the investment that they need to build viable enterprises. From the lens of the ecosystem builder or enabler, it's how do we imagine that future and invest in it, and how we see it to be, so that someone out there knows that there is reason enough to push investment into this sector. For the creative economy, it's so hidden, it operates so much in the informal. The moment you speak about it, people think about musicians. There's so much more that is important. When they think about entrepreneurship, our investors would sooner invest in real estate than in a tech startup, for example, right? And
someone told me once, that's hot air balloon.
It's a hot air balloon. There's so much of a mindset shift that needs to happen, but so many players need to wake up to it in order for that shift to happen. You know?
Okay, let's imagine with a patriot who's listening in right now. They're probably confused. What are we talking about? Let's bring it down practically.
Okay.
When you worked at ITC, you had amazing stats of this kind of investment and how much revenue was made. A few success stories of entrepreneurs, and probably one of our listeners is one of those stats that start their business, but it doesn't make it after a year. What are those success stories we can probably relate with?
For me, before I even speak maybe about the success stories, about my work with ITC, the International Trade Center, under the Youth Startup Academy, it was part of the model of what I speak to. It was a partnership between various agencies. There was government involvement, there was private sector involvement, so many other players within investors, angel investors, VCs, and so forth. This is what I mean when I say we need an active, coordinated ecosystem. And because of it, we were able to see, so what does success look like? Does success look like supporting a young person who comes in with a business, and they come in at, let's say, idea stage, and by the time that support is given, they actually have a minimum viable product, right, that they're able to go into the market and test. Or it looks like someone who comes in with an actual product, and by the time they've been supported, they are generating revenue, right? They had 2 people on their team, and now they're employing 10 people. What does the ripple effect of that look like? We had a startup that we supported, active in Uganda, and now exporting products to Kenya as well out of it. So it really starts by defining what does success look like from our ecosystem lens, what we tracked, how many jobs were we able to create out of it. Over 1,000 jobs in about 2 years. And then you think about how many of those enterprises are still active today, because we know many don't live past their first or at most second birthday, right? A number of them are still surviving today and actively engaging with the marketplace. For me, it's a game of numbers. The success stories are important because one Korean VC came in to coach and ended up investing in a startup who has now been given a visa to be able to build from Korea, right? Imagine what that startup will do.
Yeah. What sector were they?
Agriculture.
Okay.
We also had a tech startup that was able to raise through the program. If you have that stamp of approval where you have an investor who's going throughout the entire due diligence process before you get to a point in which you are ready to invest, it means something exists within your ecosystem worth investing in. So those success stories that we highlighted across, I think we had about a number of success stories that we were able to highlight through the program. But those were not just success stories. It was testament to the fact that something here that exists that can be scaled across Africa. Or even, on a global stage. Yeah.
The African Creatives Alliance.
Yes.
How are you empowering these young entrepreneurs? What are the trends you're seeing now that weren't there a few years ago?
The story of the African Creatives Alliance is interesting. Right now in my role as the ED for Innovation Village Hub, the Innovation Village is very reputable in the ecosystem it's been able to build for the tech entrepreneur, right? When we think about what the tech ecosystem looks like, when we think about tech as an enabler, active participation from Ugandan businesses and Ugandan startups joining that global ecosystem. And I think Innovation Village has really spearheaded what it means to build a tech ecosystem. However, in that journey, there was the realization that there was a big demographic that was being left behind. And in solutioning or in trying to understand this demographic, you realize that many of them did not fall into what you call your traditional tech ecosystem. They fell into what we call the CCIs, which is the cultural and creative industries.
Yes.
That is what led to the design and birth of Motive. Motive is East Africa's largest makerspace and creative hub, right? It's a very interesting model that fuses that shared production with incubation.
We had CK on the podcast.
Oh!
So you might go and listen to this.
Please
go.
Oh, nice.
Heavy.
You don't even need more of my knowledge. Watch CK's podcast. I think it will lay the groundwork for what I'm saying. You realize there's a missed segment and opportunity. That is the creative economy. Many young people are active in. So imagine the possibility of unlocking that potential of the creative economy and what it could mean for us as a country. On a global standard, the creative economy contributes trillions of dollars. Africa has a very small percentage of that.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, to speak to the digital economy, one of our friends in the podcasting world said, because Spotify was here recently, our artists, they mentioned in that conversation there was over $166 million to be made in Uganda.
Yes. Why are we not making it?
You tell me.
That is the question I set out on. Through the model of Motive as one of the benchmarks, we realized that there was so much, there's efforts, but a lot of them happening in isolation, right? So what would it mean to form a Pan-African movement towards the creative economy? And that's how the Alliance was birthed. Speaking to players in the space that are sharing the same belief, and also sharing the idea that there isn't enough advocacy or support for the sector. We shared a similar vision with a team from the AU last year who invited us to the inaugural Africa Urban Forum in Addis. And that is where we were able to launch the Africa Creatives Alliance. And what the Alliance really is about positioning Africa as a global participator in the creative economy. And one of the means that we use to that, what we see as a critical component of that, is the intermediaries, the hubs, the accelerators, the incubators, because these structures are the pathway to the creatives. If we're to advocate for the sector at scale, we need to advocate for the members, along with the stakeholders. There are a number of pillars the Alliance looks at, It's really a Pan-African solution for the creative economy. Yeah.
And I'm now just curious, having all these creatives in an alliance, what is their challenge? Or call it an opportunity?
Yes.
What are the opportunities they're noticing that they're working on at the moment?
Yeah. Recently, our report got endorsed. So we have a report called the Moonshot 8 report that takes a Pan-African view of the creative economy and some of the key cornerstones that are needed to activate the creative economy. Because we know that there are gaps that exist. People want to know the data on the sector. You know, if we are to speak about investment and getting investment into the sector, what is the data that, what are some of those things that need to exist? When we think about education, you know, it's such a pillar of it. How do we embed the creative economy into our education systems? So even before these businesses enter pre-incubation or incubation, right at school level, it's already integrated. It's not viewed as just another subject or one you take when you don't know. It's an actual industry, an actual career. When we think about infrastructure, what is some of the infrastructure that's needed to ensure that creators can thrive? You know, if I want to be a podcaster, for example, I don't even have access to the equipment or to the learnings. What's the software that I should be utilizing to be able to actively participate in this space? The policy. No investor is going to come into and invest in something where they don't feel like their investment is protected. How do we ensure an enabling environment that recognizes the creative industry? Do we have a dedicated ministry for that? Where do you go? Those are some things the report looked at and made the case for. This is how big the sector is. This is where Africa's play is, but this is where Africa's play could be. When we talk about trade, when we talk about export, what does it mean for the creative economy? Same for Uganda. What does it mean for Uganda? We're hearing so much about the AfCFTA right now, but does the ordinary creative understand what the free trade means? For someone who's just creating, if this podcast is played in Nairobi, what does it mean for you? It's really conversations around IP. If I need financing as a creative and I walk into a bank, I'm not going to have your traditional idea of what I need to access that financing of collateral. But why can't my IP be my collateral? So it's conversations and solutioning to understand key things that need to come together and the key players that need to work together to activate this entire economy exists.
I love that. I need to get my hands on the Moonshot 8 report.
Moonshot 8 report.
What were your recommendations in that report?
Number one, we advocated for an orchestrated ecosystem. The idea that if we have an investment project we'd like to pilot, how does it look to pilot interventions through intermediaries? The role intermediaries play in building such spaces. Why can't we have 10 motors across Uganda? Why does a creative to access production facilities have to travel all the way to Kampala, right? If access to infrastructure is readily available, it could unlock financing. What financing mechanisms can work for creatives? How do we get traditional institutions like banks to understand creatives and to begin building products that work for them? And what role do they play for the investors? What does patient capital look like for a creative? You're not going to see your returns today or tomorrow, but you are investing in something that will work. Let's design interventions that speak to the creative economy. For development partners, when designing all of these solutions, why are we not designing a solution for the sector too? For policy, you know, where is the policy that protects not just the investment we want to come in, but for the creators that need the investment to come into them? What protects them? What laws, what framework govern this space? Because unless we have clear recognition of the space, and it's hard to advocate for it.
TikTok not being able to pay in Uganda. Why? Discussion here.
Why? It's because you're not seen as a big enough player in the space. If your own government doesn't understand the space, how do you expect others to? So unless we prove the real business viability, unfortunately, of Uganda's contribution, we're seeing South Africa participate on Netflix. Where is Uganda? imagine.
But there is Uganda and West Africa.
You know, we see a whole.
I get your point.
Yeah, we see a whole industry that West Africa has built. Nollywood, you know, local content. How do we start at home by investing in local content?
So in your opinion, what would be a step-by-step approach to actually prove creatives are actually a thing in this country?
For me, it's not just about proving it. No one's going to listen until we see the money or the viability of the sector. So control it, build mechanisms around it. IP rights. How do we protect the IP rights of our creators? If we're already taking it for granted, how do we sensitize them to know what is IP? When I'm creating this work, how do I protect my work? How do I monetize my work?
I think that some creatives at least are having this conversation. There's a lot of awareness today. So we're not as green as when IP just became a conversation. So a lot more conversations around it and a lot more testing. If we're seeing more investment coming into creative enterprises, we'll get more conversation as well. What if government can be the first investor? I know we have a number of skilling hubs that government is putting up, but what if we use models to invest in 100 hubs across the country? You've shown that it can scale. So how many viable businesses are we going to get out of those? You know, and those are the ones that can now be your pilot to what comes next. So don't leave the sector behind. It's not just cosmetic. These are crafts and entire industries that employ many people. You know, think about what goes into making a podcast. What does the value chain look like? How many people have to be engaged across? What are the professions that exist? What are the various value chains that exist? All creative.
Exactly. So imagine how many lives or jobs are created because you're sitting here. We must rethink the creative economy. There are so many subsets, sectors, professions within it.
Okay, before we go any further, for that patriot who is still wondering, maybe I could be a graphics designer. Give us a few examples of creatives weren't common before but are very common now, or there's a possibility.
I will speak to the motive model because we look at the model more like verticals or subsectors of the creative economy. We have fashion and textile vertical, which speaks to fashion, the brands that are birthed out of it, and textile. We think about our Chef's Hat Academy, the Kitchen Academy, where anyone within culinary arts, passion for food, right, is going to come out of that. We think about our media vertical, the podcasts, the radio, film, graphic designers. We think about the Music Academy, the artists, the musicians. We think about our wood and metal, the artisans who create or manufacture. Think about the interior designers, the architectures, focus on design. There are many different arts, the digital space as well. How does the digital space fuse with the creative economy? When we talk about creative tech, you know, the visual artists, the content creators, it's endless. So many professions or creators in this space. Find out what is your passion, where you fit within the creative economy, and how can you build something out of it.
For any of you who had doubt today, there's limitless possibilities of what you could do. I mean, I still hear that people whose parents still doubt, you know, their abilities in some crafts. Would it make you more money, a living? Your dream is valid.
Yes,
what do they say? Motive?
Your
idea is
valid.
Yes. Your idea is valid. It's brilliant. It's been brilliant to have you here. We have our very last question we ask every guest that comes onto the podcast. Are you ready, Rita?
Yes.
What do you think it will take for Uganda to achieve a middle-class economy?
It's going to take joint efforts. No sector or institution is going to achieve it on its own. It's going to take government participation. It's going to take private sector participation. It's going to take citizen participation. So for me, it's what we do at the village is we are just enablers. We are orchestrators of bringing the different stakeholders together in one shared mission. It's not going to be achieved by Retail Innovation Village or by Africa Creators Alliance or by AGI, but it's going to be achieved when all of us come together to pool resources and play our part.
That's brilliant. You've been very articulate and passionate as you deliver this conversation. It leads me to wonder where you get the passion from. Why Uganda? Why Africa?
Oh, interesting. It would go back to how I ended up in this space. I started my career in investment banking, right?
Yes.
And I didn't grow up in Uganda, right? But there was a part of me that always yearned for it. There's a part of me that always believed that we don't always need solutions created for us. We can create solutions for the world. Why must the world always create solutions for Africa? And the fastest way for me that I saw that happening, or the fastest way for me in which I see the transformation of communities, is to design and build industries that work for us. We're only going to do that through innovation and entrepreneurship. That's simple. That's simple. So if we're able to unlock that at scale, then Africa can sell its own solutions to the world and not always be the handout.
Yeah. So
right?
you quit your job then?
Yeah, so I mean, I left my job, I resigned, where someone would think, what the hell are you doing? Because this is just the beginning of your career. I said, I'm going home. It was a bold risk. Looking back, I'm like, wow, it was a bold risk. But something told me it was time. And that's generally how I move in my career. I'm driven by impact. I'm driven by the idea that we can build something. And whatever part I get to play in that, if it gets to unlock 30 or 50 minds to show them what's possible, that's fine. Then my journey back home began. I can't say that it wasn't without a lot of, what do we call them? Hiccups, bumps. You know, the dream, I'll come home and change lives and crickets after. Ideally, it's a mission-driven life. That's what I hope to achieve.
I love that. For that person who wants to tap into that mission-driven life, where do they find you? We know you're on LinkedIn.
Find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me. Come and join our community at Innovation Village Hub. You can access me at Motive. I think you know about Innovation District, which we've now set up.
The former Design Hub.
Yes, former Design Hub. Reach out to the Africa Creators Alliance. If you have an intermediary or hub that you belong to, let them sign up as members. Read the report. Ask yourself questions and plug into a community. My advice, plug into a community, because we're building communities.
Thank you so much. I know we could go on and on about this conversation, but I think it's a great way to end. What do you think?
Yeah, every time I speak about it, I'm reminded of why it's so important.
I could see the passion.
Yeah, it takes time.
But thank you so much for making time. I'm glad. I always learn so much. I used to be such an avid reader, but these days I read one book a month. But having guests like yourselves, I leave this place buzzing. Like my brain is always, she said this, and it's pretty.
The world is your book. People are your book. There's so much to learn from everyone that you come across. And what you're doing is so important, you know, because your contribution to this narrative is so critical, and the fact that you're doing it, well,
I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you as well for honoring our invitation and making it to the podcast. And it's a wrap.